Chosen ones, listen carefully. There are moments in existence that do not arrive with thunder, yet they split reality more deeply than any storm ever could. There are decisions so quiet that no crowd applauds them, no trumpet announces them, no witness fully understands them, and yet the entire architecture of your life begins to move because of them. What happened in your spirit was not small. What shifted inside you was not ordinary. What you called a private moment, a subtle refusal, a silent release, a final act of endurance, was actually the kind of movement that causes unseen doors to unlock all at once. This is why you were pulled here. Because something in you already knows that your last step was not random. It was not a meaningless gesture swallowed by time. It was not just another weary decision made in the middle of a hard season. It was a line drawn in the invisible. It was a signal. It was a declaration made not by noise, but by alignment. And alignment is stronger than noise will ever be. Noise can impress a room, but alignment can reroute a destiny. There are people who still think great change always looks dramatic in the beginning. They believe transformation must always arrive with immediate proof, visible reward and obvious confirmation. But the deepest shifts rarely introduce themselves that way. The deepest shifts begin in silence. They begin in the inner world. They begin when a soul grows tired of betraying itself. They begin when a heart says, "Without performance and without witnesses, I cannot remain who I have been." They begin when your feet choose a direction that your old fears can no longer control. That is what this message is about. Your last step changed everything because it was not merely a movement through space. It was a movement through identity. It was a departure from the old agreement you had unconsciously made with the delay, confusion, self-abandonment, and spiritual exhaustion. You may have looked ordinary to others while taking it, but in the language of the deeper realm, it was the moment a chain gave way. It was the moment an old script lost its authority. It was the moment your life stopped orbiting around what wounded you and began turning toward what was meant for you. So do not treat this message casually. Do not skim over it as though it were another passing thought. Let it find you. Let it press against the walls you built to survive. Let it name what your spirit has been trying to tell you. Because what is happening now is bigger than mood, bigger than coincidence, bigger than chance. A threshold was crossed. A sentence ended. A hidden chapter opened. And whether you fully understood it or not, your last step sent a message into every layer of your becoming. The era of shrinking is over. The era of apologizing for your calling is over. The era of remaining half awake to your own significance is over. Stay with this all the way through. Do not turn away halfway. Do not step out before the message completes its work in you. Like this video, subscribe, activate the notification bell, leave a comment, and share this message with someone whose spirit has also been standing on the edge of a great turning. Some messages are not entertainment. Some messages are invitations. And this one has found you because your soul is no longer being asked to prepare for change. Your soul is being told that change has already begun. Part 1. The step looks small, only to the outside world. Chosen ones, the first truth you must understand is this. The size of a step is never measured by how it looks to observers. It is measured by what it breaks, what it opens, and what reveals within the soul that takes it. The world often misjudges sacred movement because the world is trained to honor spectacle. It notices the loud announcement, the public victory, the visible result. But the deeper current of life does not begin there. It begins in the chamber, where no one is watching, where you stop negotiating with what has kept you bound, and where your spirit makes a decision that your mouth may not even fully know how to explain. That is why your last step was powerful. It may have looked like a conversation you finally ended. It may have looked like a pattern you quietly refused to repeat. It may have looked like a door you did not knock on again. It may have looked like an offer you declined, a distraction you outgrew, a sorrow you stopped worshipping, or a role you no longer agreed to perform. To the casual eye, it was nothing dramatic. To the soul, it was revolutionary, because every time you stop feeding what diminishes you, you do more than protect your peace. You alter the entire direction of your becoming. A person does not lose themselves in one dramatic collapse. Most people lose themselves in tiny betrayals repeated over time. They silence what they know. They shrink where they should expand. They remain where they are already being called to leave. They keep handing their energy to what does not honor their life. So when you finally made a small but honest movement in the direction of truth, that movement carried more force than anyone around you could see. The reason it changed so much is because truth restores order, not immediately in a way that is always visible, but deeply and irreversibly. Truth begins to put your inner world back into its proper arrangement. It stops the leaking. It reclaims scattered energy. It gathers the pieces of you that were being spent on fear, on approval, on waiting for permission, on surviving in places that were never built to hold your full self. The small step was powerful because it was not just an action. It was consent. It was you finally agreeing with the deeper calling that had been knocking at the door of your life for longer than you realized. And the moment you agree with what is real, false structures begin to weaken. That is why some things started feeling strange after your last step. That is why old environments may have felt less familiar. That is why certain conversations began to sound empty. That is why the things that once distracted you began to lose their flavor. It is not because something is wrong with you. It is because your inner world has already moved, and now your outer world is slowly being forced to catch up. A genuine step in alignment always creates a delay between what is shifted inside and what is fully manifested outside. That delay can confuse people. It can make them question whether anything happened at all. But chosen ones do not confuse invisible movement with no movement. Roots grow in darkness before branches can be seen. Foundations settle beneath the ground before towers rise. The deepest rearrangements are quiet at first because they are working below the surface where permanence is formed. So honor your small step. Honor the version of you that took it while trembling. Honor the courage that did not need an audience. Honor the wisdom that did not wait for applause. Because that step was not little in the only place that matters. It was enormous in the realm where destiny is rewritten, where cycles are broken, and where the soul begins returning to its rightful position. The outside world may call it minor because it did not understand what was being challenged. But you are not moving furniture. You are moving history. You are not merely changing a choice. You are changing the pattern beneath the choice. And once the pattern changes, everything built on top of it must eventually change too. Part 2. Your last step closed an old contract with fear. Chosen ones, not every prison has bars, and not every contract is signed on paper. Some agreements are formed silently over years of disappointment, pain, delay, and adaptation. A soul can unconsciously make a pact with limitation simply because it has endured limitation for too long. It can begin to believe that postponement is normal, that confusion is permanent, that self-abandonment is wisdom, that hiding is safety, and that surviving is the highest form of living. But the moment you took your last true step, something ancient in you began to reject that lie. Your last step changed everything because it interrupted your old relationship with fear. Fear is not always loud. Sometimes fear is polished. Sometimes it sounds reasonable. Sometimes It arrives dressed as caution, humility, practicality, or patience. Sometimes, fear says stay where you are because at least this pain is familiar. Sometimes, fear says, do not disappoint anyone by becoming more than they expected. Sometimes, fear says, do not follow what calls you because you might fail, and failure would hurt your pride. But the deeper danger was never failure. The deeper danger was obedience to a smaller life. That is the contract your last step broke. When you moved anyway, when you released anyway, when you told the truth anyway, when you stopped reaching for what your spirit had already outgrown, you sent a direct message to every false agreement living inside you. You declared that fear no longer gets to narrate your future. You declared that your wounds may have shaped some chapters, but they will not author the rest of your story. You declared that comfort purchased at the price of your calling is too expensive, and in that moment the old terms began to dissolve. This is why you may feel both relief and disorientation at the same time. Whenever an old contract closes, there is often a strange season where the familiar stops fitting, but the new has not yet fully taken form. It can feel like standing between identities. You are no longer who you were, but you are still learning how to inhabit who you are becoming. The old instructions do not work anymore. The old avoidance patterns feel heavy. The old emotional bargains cannot hold your future. This in-between place can feel confusing, but it is not a mistake. It is sacred restructuring. Because before a new life can be built, the old agreements must first lose their authority, and fear hates losing authority. That is why it sometimes gets louder right after a breakthrough. It senses the shift. It notices that you are no longer as easily governed. So, it tries one more round of intimidation. It reminds you of past pain. It magnifies uncertainty. It offers you old exits. It tempts you to return to the very place you were delivered from internally. But chosen ones, this is not proof that you are going backward. It is proof that the old system knows it is losing power. Do not re-sign what your soul has already cancelled. Do not return to identities that required your diminishment. Do not call yourself confused when you are actually detoxing from the habit of abandoning your own truth. You are not just learning to be brave. You are learning to live without being managed by fear. That is a very different kind of life. It is a life where your peace is no longer built on avoidance. It is a life where your next step comes from inner authority, not outer pressure. It is a life where hesitation does not get the final say simply because it arrived first. Your last step changed everything because it ended an internal arrangement that had been quietly sabotaging your expansion. And once fear is no longer your silent advisor, your vision clears, your energy returns, your voice deepens, your posture changes, your timing sharpens. You begin to recognize doors by resonance instead of chasing everything that glitters. You begin to understand that some things were not delayed because you were forgotten. Some things were delayed because you were still untangling yourself from the agreements that would have made you misuse them. Now that the contract is closing, your life can finally stop circling the same mountain. Now your path can become direct. Now the future can hear you clearly. Part 3. What you called obedience was actually a return to your original design. Chosen ones. There comes a point in every real awakening when the soul becomes exhausted by imitation. It becomes tired of performing identities that fit the expectations of others, but suffocate the truth of its own design. It becomes weary of living according to borrowed rhythms, inherited fear, unspoken pressure, and invisible standards that were never aligned with its deepest purpose. Your last step mattered because it was not only an act of courage, it was an act of return. You were coming back to yourself, not the self built for survival. Not the self, curated for approval. Not the self, shaped by old disappointments or reduced by other people's inability to perceive your depth. You are returning to the deeper design that existed before fear began editing your instincts. You are returning to the inner blueprint that still remembered what kind of life your spirit was built to carry. This is why the step felt so serious, even if it looked simple. A return to the original design always feels weighty because it reintroduces you to a truth that cannot be unknown once it is felt again. Many people misunderstand obedience because they think it means shrinking. They think it means suppressing desire, ignoring individuality, or becoming passive. But true obedience, at the deepest level, is not slavery to an external force. It is alignment with what is highest, truest, and most life-giving within and around you. It is the willingness to let your life come back into right relationship with meaning. It is the courage to say yes to what deepens your soul, even when it disrupts your habits. It is the discipline to move in harmony with what calls you upward, even when the lower self begs for convenience. That is why your step was powerful. It was not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It was not movement for the sake of novelty. It was not restlessness masquerading as growth. It was obedience to a deeper knowing, a knowing that had been whispering beneath the noise, a knowing that had tried to guide you through unease, repetition, and inner friction, a knowing that kept telling you that the version of life you were tolerating was not the version of life you were meant to remain in. And when you finally honored that knowing, something profound happened. Your life began to reorganize around truth rather than habit. This is one of the holiest shifts a person can experience, because habit can keep you alive while truth teaches you how to truly live. Habit can keep you functioning in misalignment for years. Habit can make wrong places feel normal. Habit can make emptiness feel respectable. Habit can convince you that numbness is maturity. But once obedience awakens in the soul, numbness can no longer pretend to be peace. You start noticing where your energy collapses. You start feeling the cost of divided loyalties. You start recognizing that every time you move against your deepest knowing, something in you dims. And every time you honor it, even at a cost, something in you brightens. That brightness is not fantasy, it is evidence. It is the evidence of design being restored. This is why your last step is still echoing, because original design carries authority. When you move in alignment with it, your choices carry a different texture. Your words become cleaner. Your discernment becomes sharper. Your energy becomes less available for nonsense. You stop begging for access to rooms that cannot hold your weight. You stop chasing validation from people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop confusing familiarity with destiny. The more you return to your original design, the less tolerance you have for what requires self-betrayal. And that is not hardness. That is maturity. The soul was never meant to be dragged forever through a life that contradicts it. The soul was meant to awaken, remember, and rise into congruence. Your last step was a return to congruence. It was a sacred refusal to keep building on a distorted version of yourself. It was the moment the hidden architect within you stood up and said, enough. We will not construct another year on a foundation that cannot carry who we really are. So if the road ahead feels different now, it is because it is. You are not merely trying harder. You are building from truth now. And anything built from truth may take time, but it will finally be able to hold the full weight of your becoming. Part 4. The delay was never denial. It was divine timing rearranging the landscape. Chosen ones, one of the greatest burdens a soul carries is the belief that delay means abandonment. It is a painful interpretation, and many have suffered beneath it. They waited, hoped, endured, and because the answer did not arrive when expected, They began to think they were unseen. They began to suspect that their efforts were unnoticed, that their sincerity was pointless, that their path had somehow been forgotten by the greater intelligence guiding life. But your last step is proof that the delay was not empty. It was preparation. It was rearrangement. It was timing doing work you cannot yet see. The reason this matters is because a blessing given before the soul is ready can become a burden. An opportunity received before the identity is formed can be mishandled. A door opened before discernment matures can lead a person into rooms they are not yet steady enough to navigate. So what many call waiting is often a hidden season of calibration. It is the period in which your outer life seems quiet, while the inner architecture necessary for the next assignment is being built. Your last step changed everything because it showed that the waiting had done its work. There is a difference between wanting change and being prepared to carry it. Many want expansion, but not everyone is ready for the responsibility expansion requires. Many want elevation, but not everyone has become intimate enough with themselves to stay grounded once it arrives. Many want answers, but not everyone has developed the inward stillness required to interpret those answers correctly. Timing is merciful because it does not only deliver outcomes, it also shapes the vessel that must carry them. That shaping is rarely comfortable. It involves disappointment that teaches discernment. It involves closed doors that sharpen direction. It involves silence that trains listening. It involves loss that reveals what was false. It involves repetition that exposes what still needs healing. So when your last step arrived, it was not just another attempt. It was evidence that the soil had changed. You were no longer the same person who once asked for the same thing. You had been seasoned by time, clarified by pain, refined by restraint, deepened by solitude, and sobered by truth. The step mattered because it was taken by a version of you that had finally become capable of stewarding what comes next. This is why timing now feels different. You may notice that certain things are moving with unusual speed after a long period of slowness. You may feel that conversations, opportunities, insights, and closures are arriving with a surprising force. That is because when timing turns, it often turns all at once. The long stillness was not proof that nothing was happening. It was proof that many things were being aligned behind the curtain. The right ending had to meet the right beginning. The right maturity had to meet the right opening. The right detachment had to meet the right invitation. And your last step was the signal that the season of private formation was no longer the only story. Now manifestation begins to catch up with maturation. But do not misunderstand this. Divine timing is not magic that excuses passivity. It is not a fantasy that removes responsibility. It is partnership between your becoming and the larger intelligence that knows when and how a thing can best arrive. Your last step mattered because you participated in timing. You responded when the inward signal became clear. You moved when hesitation no longer fit. You cooperated with the deeper current rather than resisting it for one more cycle. That cooperation is sacred because there are moments when the landscape of a life is ready to change, but the person keeps clinging to the old map. Your courage prevented that. Your honesty prevented that. Your willingness to step prevented that. And now roads that once seemed sealed may begin to open, not because the universe suddenly changed its mind, but because you finally arrived at the version of yourself that could meet the moment without collapsing under it. So release the belief that you were forgotten. Release the belief that nothing was happening. Release the interpretation that silence meant rejection. The delay was teaching your soul how to stand in rooms your old identity could not have survived. And when your final step came, timing recognized you. It recognized your readiness. It recognized your new weight. It recognized that the season had turned. And now what once seemed impossible can begin to look inevitable. Part 5. Your last step began healing places in you that success alone could never heal. Chosen ones, not every breakthrough is about arrival. Some breakthroughs are about restoration. Some shifts are not primarily meant to increase what you have, but to recover what you lost while trying to survive. This is why your last step changed so much. It did not simply reposition your future. It began healing hidden fractures in your inner world that outward success could never repair. There are wounds that achievement cannot touch. You can be praised and still feel unseen. You can be chosen and still feel unsafe. You can be surrounded and still feel abandoned. You can keep moving and still feel split inside. The soul knows when it is being carrying unresolved weight, even if the personality learns how to function impressively around it. And sometimes, the greatest transformation begins not when more is added to your life, but when your inner being finally receives permission to stop living in emergency mode. That is what your last step did. It told the nervous part of you that the old chase was over. It told the tired part of you that peace did not have to be earned through exhaustion. It told the wounded part of you that truth would no longer be traded for temporary comfort. It told the abandoned parts of you that they would not be left behind again, just to keep external order intact. This matters more than many people realize, because when a soul has lived too long in tension, it starts to normalize self-division. One part of you performs strength. Another part quietly starves. One part keeps showing up. Another part is still kneeling in an old moment of pain, waiting to be acknowledged. One part knows the future is calling. Another part fears that moving forward means reliving what once broke you. Healing begins when these inner fragments are no longer forced to compete for survival. Healing begins when your life becomes safe enough for your deeper self to come back into the room. Your last step created that safety. Not perfect safety, not a life free from challenge, but a new internal honesty strong enough to begin reconciliation. And reconciliation is powerful. It means the parts of you that were silenced can start speaking. It means the grief you outran can finally be held without destroying you. It means the anger beneath your politeness can be translated into boundaries. It means the tenderness beneath your toughness can return without shame. It means the self you buried beneath duty and disappointment can slowly rise. A great many people want the next chapter without healing from the chapter that nearly erased them. But unhealed pain always tries to write itself into the future. It distorts perception, attaches to wrong people, confuses intensity for destiny, and makes the soul interpret peace as unfamiliar and therefore suspicious. This is why your last step was so important. It interrupted that pattern. It chose truth over repetition. It chose wholeness over performance. It chose the long path of restoration over the quick relief of denial. That choice is changing more than you know, because healed vision sees differently. Healed energy chooses differently. Healed identity receives differently. When the inner fractures begin mending, you stop mistaking what drains you for what defines you. You stop mistaking chaos for aliveness. You stop feeling obligated to prove your worth to those who benefited from your brokenness. You begin to notice how much of your life had been shaped by adaptation rather than authenticity. And once that awareness arrives, healing is no longer optional. It becomes the path itself. So if you feel unusually emotional, tender, reflective, or raw after your last step, do not judge yourself for it. You are not becoming weak. You are becoming reachable again. The deeper self is coming back online. The numbness is wearing off. The armor is no longer fused to your skin. The healing has begun, not because life suddenly became easy, but because you finally stopped choosing what kept reopening the wound. And that is a holy turning. Because from this point forward, your future is no longer being built only by ambition. It is being built by restoration. And what is built by restoration carries a peace that no amount of applause can counterfeit. Part 6. The step activated your spiritual authority and changed the tone of your presence. Chosen ones. One of the quietest miracles in a person's life is the moment their presence begins to carry a new tone. They may not look different at first glance. Their voice may remain calm. Their routine may appear ordinary, yet something unmistakable has changed. They no longer move with the same uncertainty. They no longer hand their center away so easily. They no longer ask permission from rooms that were never qualified to define them. This is what happens when spiritual authority awakens, and your last step did exactly that. Authority is often misunderstood because people confuse it with control. They think authority means domination, volume, performance, or the ability to make others submit. But real authority is deeper and cleaner than that. Real authority is congruence made visible. It is the weight that comes from inner agreement. It is the steadiness of a life no longer divided against itself. It is what emerges when your words, values, discernment, and direction begin moving together instead of pulling against each other. That is why your step changed so much. It was not merely a practical decision. It was a declaration of self-leadership. It was you showing your own soul that you could be trusted with your becoming. And the moment a person becomes trustworthy to themselves, their presence changes. The eyes become clearer. The boundaries become cleaner. The intuition becomes less apologetic. The voice stops trembling around truths it already knows. The energy stops bending to keep everybody comfortable. This is not cruelty. This is centeredness. There is a spiritual dignity that enters a life once self-betrayal is no longer acceptable. That dignity does not need to shout. It does not need to explain itself endlessly. It does not need constant validation to remain firm. It simply stands. And because it stands, things around it begin to rearrange. Some people step closer because they recognize truth when they feel it. Others step away because your new steadiness exposes the instability of the games they were playing. Both are useful. Spiritual authority clarifies relationships by changing what your field will and will not entertain. This is why you may feel less available for what once consumed you. You are not becoming cold, you are becoming governed. You are not losing compassion, you are gaining discernment. You are not becoming arrogant. You are remembering your weight. Authority does not mean you believe you are above others. It means you stop living beneath what you know. It means you stop shrinking your voice to protect distortions. It means you stop translating your clarity into confusion just so people can keep avoiding the truth. It means you honor the instruction that rose within you strongly enough to let it reshape your posture toward life. And posture matters, because life often responds not only to what you desire, but to what you are prepared to stand for. A soul that keeps collapsing under pressure cannot hold the same kind of future as a soul that has learned how to remain rooted in truth. Your last step strengthened your posture. It taught your spirit that movement is possible without self-abandonment. It taught your nervous system that boundaries can exist without disaster. It taught your inner world that firmness is not violence. It is protection of what is sacred. As this authority grows, you may notice something else. Your legacy begins to sharpen. Legacy is not just what you leave behind after you are gone. Legacy is what your way of being plants in every room you enter now. It is the permission your courage gives other people. It is the language your healing provides to those still trapped in silence. It is the standard your life quietly sets by refusing to betray itself. Your last step changed everything because it was not only about you escaping an old pattern. It was about you becoming the kind of presence that alters the atmosphere for others. That is not a small thing. A person in authority with no performance, no spectacle, and no need for domination becomes a living signal. They remind others that depth still exists. They remind others that truth can still be embodied. They remind others that a quiet soul can still carry immense force. Your last step activated that signal. It made your life harder to ignore in the unseen sense, because now your presence carries the sound of someone who has crossed a threshold and cannot be manipulated back into the old room. Walk carefully with that authority. Use it cleanly. Use it compassionately. Use it without vanity. But do not deny it, because your life has entered a season where your presence itself is part of the message. Part 7. The step was the beginning of a new era, not the end of a hard story. Chosen ones, when people survive a difficult season, they often imagine the goal is simply to get past it. They think the purpose of struggle is only relief. They think the miracle is only escape. But your last step reveals something greater. It was not simply the closing of pain. It was the opening of an era. It was the beginning of a life no longer organized around reaction, but around purpose. And that is a very different future. A hard season teaches many things. It teaches endurance. It teaches discernment. It teaches humility. It teaches the anatomy of longing. It teaches what can break and what can survive. But if pain is all a person learns, then pain remains the center of the story. Your last step changed everything because it moved the center. It shifted your life away from being defined by what hurt you and toward being defined by what now calls you. That is how a new era begins. Not when the past disappears, but when the past loses the right to be the axis around which everything turns. This matters more than you know, because many people leave situations, but do not leave the internal era created by those situations. Their bodies exit, but their imagination remains trapped. Their calendars change, but their identity stays arranged around old pain. Their language continues to revolve around recovery rather than creation, but your final step broke that cycle. It introduced a new center of gravity. It told your life, we are not just escaping, we are building. We are not just ending, we are beginning. We are not just surviving the fire, we are becoming someone who can carry light. That is why the road ahead may feel charged right now. You are not standing at the edge of a minor adjustment. You are standing at the edge of a redefinition. The questions change in a new era. Instead of asking, how do I avoid being hurt again? You begin asking, what am I here to build now that I am no longer ruled by fear? Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? You begin asking what truth was forged in me that can now serve a larger purpose. Instead of asking, when will my life finally begin? You begin realizing that your life has been gathering itself for this very chapter. A new era requires a new relationship with responsibility, not burden. Responsibility. Burden crushes. Responsibility clarifies. Burden feels imposed. Responsibility feels chosen. Burden makes you smaller. Responsibility makes you stand taller. The moment you recognize that your next season carries real purpose, your decisions gain new gravity. Your energy becomes more intentional. Your time becomes more sacred. Your relationships become more honest. You stop scattering yourself because you understand that what is opening now deserves your full presence. The era ahead is not asking you to be perfect. It is asking you to be present, awake, and willing to steward what your former self could only dream about. And yes, that includes joy. Do not make the mistake of thinking spiritual depth means perpetual heaviness. A new era also includes the return of wonder. It includes laughter that does not come from denial. It includes rest that does not come from collapse. It includes relationships that do not require self-erasure. It includes work that feels meaningful. It includes the quiet satisfaction of knowing your life is finally moving in a direction your soul can bless. This is why your last step matters so deeply. It was a hinge. It was a turning point. It was the final movement of an old identity and the first movement of a new stewardship. You are not at the end of your significance. You are at its unveiling. The things ahead of you are not random rewards thrown into your path to impress you. They are assignments, confirmations, openings, and manifestations that meet the person you are becoming. And because the era is changing, you must stop speaking of yourself as though you are still trapped in the old one. Call yourself forward. Speak with the tone of someone crossing into responsibility. Walk with the awareness of someone whose choices now plant the future. Protect your peace, not because you are fragile, but because your atmosphere matters. Guard your vision, not because you are afraid, but because what you carry deserves integrity. This is a new era, and the final step that brought you here was not the ending of your story. It was the beginning of your true voice inside it. Closing. Chosen ones, hear this like a final declaration. Your last step was not forgotten. It was recorded in the deepest fabric of your becoming. It was felt by every unseen structure that had been waiting for your consent to change. It was the moment your life stopped asking for permission to become what it was always meant to be. Let this settle into you fully. You did not come this far merely to circle the same pain with better language. You did not survive all that silence, all that waiting, all that inner wrestling, just to return to the old agreement. You did not carry this much fire in your spirit only to hide from the very doorway your soul has spent years approaching. No. Something greater has happened. A decisive turn has been made. A threshold has been crossed. A command has gone out through the corridors of your life that the old era has ended and a new one has begun. So stand in it. Stand in the truth that your small step carried massive consequence. Stand in the truth that alignment is stronger than fear. Stand in the truth that timing was preparing, not punishing you. Stand in the truth that healing is restoring what survival could not preserve. Stand in the truth that your authority is awakening. Stand in the truth that your future is no longer being built from self-betrayal. And above all, stand in the truth that what changed in you will soon change what surrounds you. Do not shrink now. Do not doubt now. Do not talk yourself out of what your spirit already knows. The moment has turned. The tide has turned. The story has turned. What comes next will not be carried by the version of you that begged, hid, performed, or settled. What comes next will be carried by the version of you that heard the deeper call and moved. Even if the movement was trembling, even if it was quiet, even if no one understood it, that was enough. More than enough. Because real turning points are rarely recognized by crowds in the moment they happen. They are recognized later, when everything looks different and you finally understand where the change truly began. It began with that last step. It began when you stopped negotiating with what was draining your life. It began when you honored the truth that had outgrown your excuses. It began when you allowed the deeper design to lead. It began when your soul chose congruence over comfort. And now there is no going back to the smaller version of yourself without feeling the full weight of the lie. So let this be the declaration that seals this message. The shrinking is over. The delay is breaking. The healing is active. The authority is rising. The era is changing. And your life is no longer moving in circles. If this message found you at the exact moment your spirit needed it, like this video, subscribe, activate the notification bell, leave a comment declaring that you are ready for the new era, and share this video with someone whose soul is standing at the edge of a major turning. Do not keep this message to yourself if you know it can strengthen another heart. Receive this deeply. Walk carefully. Walk truthfully. Walk boldly. Because your last step did not merely move you forward. It changed everything.